Ever catch yourself staring in the mirror and wondering, like, huh, what's the deal with these new lines popping up? I mean,
Mm.
we all get a little curious about what's going on inside as we, age.
For sure, for sure.
Well, today we're going to really dive deep into something pretty fundamental to how our cells age:
Okay.
telomeres.
Interesting.
Imagine those little plastic tips on your shoelaces.
Right.
They keep the ends from fraying, right?
Right.
Telomeres kind of do a similar thing for our chromosomes.
Oh, okay.
And we've got this really cool research paper here, Telomeres, Telomerase, and Science of Anti-Aging.
Okay.
And it really breaks down why these tiny little structures are such a big deal in the whole aging process.
I see.
This is really like a shortcut to understanding a super fascinating and complex area of science.
Yeah, for sure.
So our mission today is to really grasp the science behind telomeres and telomerase,
Okay.
explore their potential, for anti-aging,
Right.
and then also get real about, some of the counterarguments and the risks that are involved.
Yeah, that's really important to consider all sides of it.
Absolutely.
So how do these telomeres actually work? Like, what's their role?
Yeah, that's a great place to start.
Okay, so to kind of build on that shoelace analogy,
Yeah.
what's so important about these telomeres is they're like these protective caps
Okay.
at the very ends of our DNA,
Right.
which is organized into those structures we call chromosomes.
Exactly.
And this article explains how every time a cell divides,
And that happens constantly in our bodies, right?
oh yeah, all the time,
Yeah.
these telomeres get a little bit shorter.
Okay.
It's a completely natural process.
Right.
But eventually, if they become critically short,
Yeah.
the cell kind of reaches this crisis point.
Hmm.
It can either stop dividing altogether, which we call senescence,
Okay.
or it can trigger its own self-destruct mechanism,
Wow.
apoptosis.
So it's like a built-in self-destruct.
Exactly.
Oh.
And this gradual shortening,
Yeah.
it's not just some random side effect.
Yep.
It's actually considered a really significant driver of the aging process as a whole.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit more.
Yeah.
So these telomeres are getting like snip shorter every time our cells multiply.
Right.
I get the basic idea,
Yeah.
but what's the real consequence of this shortening? Like, why is it such a big deal that these little bits at the end of our genetic material are disappearing?
Well, the article really emphasizes that these telomere caps,
Yeah.
they prevent the crucial information carrying parts of our chromosomes
Okay.
from getting damaged,
Right.
or even worse, fusing together with other chromosomes.
Oh, wow.
So as the telomeres shorten,
Yeah.
they lose some of that protective ability.
I see.
Think of it like the insulation wearing off an electrical wire.
Okay.
Eventually,
Yeah.
you can have short circuits and problems.
Right, get a power outage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this kind of deterioration at the cellular level
Yeah.
is a key contributor to the signs of aging that we see outwardly and feel internally.
Right, so they're like the guardians of our genetic code during cell division. And their slow erosion is like a biological timer ticking away.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Now, the article then introduces this really fascinating enzyme called telomerase.
Yes.
What's its role in this whole telomere story?
What's fascinating here is that telomerase acts like a dedicated repair crew.
Okay.
For those shoelace tips,
Okay.
it's an enzyme
Yeah.
with this unique ability to actually lengthen telomeres,
Wow.
essentially working against that natural shortening process we just discussed.
So it's fighting the good fight,
It is. It is.
trying to keep those telomeres long.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the article points out that in most of our adult cells,
Yeah.
telomerase activity is very low,
Okay.
almost non-existent.
Hmm.
However, it's highly active in stem cells
Okay.
and germ cells.
And those are the cells responsible for reproduction, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's precisely what allows these cells to keep dividing indefinitely without their telomeres becoming critically short.
So these foundational cells have this built-in mechanism
Yes.
to maintain their telomeres.
That's right.
Got it.
And it makes sense because they need to be able to divide and replicate many times.
Right. They're kind of like the source.
Exactly. And this is where the research gets really exciting.
Yeah, the article kind of pivots to this really exciting idea.
Yeah.
What if we could somehow kickstart telomerase activity
Yes.
in our regular aging cells?
Right.
Could that be the key to, maybe not stopping aging entirely,
Yeah.
but significantly slowing it down?
It's a big question, and one that researchers are intensely focused on.
So what does the research say so far?
Well, the article details how experimental studies in mice have yielded some really promising results.
Okay, tell me more about that.
When scientists activated telomerase in these mice,
Yeah.
they observed not only an extension of their lifespan,
Wow.
but also improvements in a range of health markers.
That's huge.
It is. And this understandably generated a lot of enthusiasm about the potential for similar applications in us humans.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The core idea is that by lengthening the telomeres in our aging cells,
Yeah.
we might be able to rejuvenate them.
That sounds almost too good to be true.
It does sound pretty amazing.
It's like hitting a cellular reset button.
Right.
So the article touches on a few potential benefits if this could be safely achieved.
Yeah.
And the first one mentioned is cellular rejuvenation.
Right.
So what would that actually look like in practice?
So the concept of cellular rejuvenation really revolves around this idea that by extending the telomeres, we could essentially restore some of the vitality and function that aging cells have lost.
Okay.
As cells age and their telomeres get shorter, they can become sluggish and less efficient at carrying out their specific tasks within the body.
Yeah, they're not pulling their weight anymore.
Exactly.
Got it.
And theoretically, giving them longer telomeres could revitalize them, making them behave more like younger, healthier cells again.
Okay, so that's cellular rejuvenation.
Yeah.
And then there's tissue regeneration.
Right.
That sounds like it could have profound implications for conditions like heart disease or neurodegenerative disorders.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the article suggests that longer telomeres might significantly boost the regenerative capabilities of our tissues and organs.
So, like, how would that work?
Well, think about vital organs like the heart, the liver, or even the brain.
Right.
If their cells could divide and repair themselves more effectively,
it
could lead to substantial improvements in their function as we age.
I see.
And potentially aid in recovery from injury or disease.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's not just about living longer.
Right.
It's about living healthier for longer.
And of course, the one that everyone's thinking about, longevity extension.
Yeah, the possibility of actually living longer.
Exactly.
It's a big one.
So how strong is the evidence for that?
Well, the article does point out that certain animal studies have demonstrated a link between telomerase activation and an increased lifespan.
Okay.
However, it's really critical to remember that these are animal models.
Right.
And whether these findings will directly translate to human biology is still a major question mark.
It's a big leap from mice to humans.
It is.
Yeah.
But the potential is definitely there, and it's a significant driving force behind the ongoing research in this field.
It's hard not to get excited about all of that potential.
It is. It's really promising stuff.
But as the article rightly emphasizes, there are some really significant counterarguments and risks that we absolutely have to consider.
Absolutely.
The first one is this idea that telomere shortening might just be a symptom of aging.
Okay.
Not the fundamental cause.
Yeah, can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah, so the article highlights that many researchers believe that while telomere shortening is undoubtedly associated with aging, it might not be the primary engine driving the entire process.
It's like a piece of the puzzle, but maybe not the whole picture. So what else is going on?
Well, there are a multitude of other cellular mechanisms that go awry as we age.
Okay, like what?
Things like our mitochondria.
The powerhouses of the cell.
Exactly.
Right.
Becoming less efficient.
Yeah.
Proteins losing their correct shape and clumping together.
Okay.
Disrupting normal cellular processes.
I see.
And changes to our epigenetics.
Epigenetics. Now, remind me what that is again?
It's kind of like the instructions that tell our genes when and where to be active.
Okay.
And these instructions can change over time.
Interesting.
So the argument is that simply addressing the telomere issue might not be sufficient to truly halt or reverse aging.
Okay.
If these other fundamental problems aren't also tackled.
So it's more complex than just focusing on telomeres.
Exactly. It's like having multiple things wrong with an engine.
Yeah.
Just fixing one part won't make it run perfectly.
That's a good analogy.
And then, of course, there's the big concern that everyone talks about cancer.
Yeah.
The article really underscores the close relationship between telomerase and cancer.
Right. This is perhaps the most significant hurdle in the development of telomerase-based therapies.
So explain that connection for me.
Well, what's fascinating and concerning is that cancer cells very frequently upregulate their telomerase activity.
Okay.
This allows them to bypass the normal limits on cell division.
Right.
And essentially become immortal.
Which is a defining characteristic of cancer.
Exactly.
Right.
So the major worry is that if we introduce a therapy that broadly activates telomerase in our healthy cells, we might inadvertently provide the fuel that precancerous cells need to grow and spread uncontrollably.
That's a scary thought.
It is a serious concern.
Yeah.
While researchers are actively exploring ways to precisely target telomerase or regulate its activity to avoid this risk, it remains a very serious safety concern that needs to be overcome.
You definitely don't want to solve one problem and end up creating a far more dangerous one.
Absolutely.
And it's really interesting that the article also points to examples of long-lived species in the natural world that don't necessarily have exceptionally high telomerase activity.
Right. Like which ones?
The article mentions species like bowhead whales.
Wow.
and naked mole rats.
Interesting.
Both of which boast remarkably long lifespans.
Yeah, they do.
But don't seem to rely on extraordinarily high levels of telomerase.
So what does that tell us?
This really underscores the intricate and multifaceted nature of aging and longevity.
Okay.
It strongly suggests that nature has evolved other diverse mechanisms to achieve longevity.
Interesting. Like what kind of mechanisms?
Perhaps through more efficient and robust DNA repair systems.
Okay.
More effective immune surveillance against diseases like cancer.
Right.
Or other as yet undiscovered protective strategies.
Makes you wonder what else is out there.
It really does.
Yeah.
It highlights that telomeres are just one piece, albeit an important one,
Right.
of a very complex biological puzzle.
It's not a simple solution.
Not at all.
Okay.
The article then shifts to the future of telomere research and raises some really critical questions that scientists are still trying to answer.
What are some of the big unknowns?
Well, a big one is the safety question.
Of course, particularly the cancer risk.
Exactly.
We need to figure out if there are safe ways to activate telomerase in humans without increasing the risk of cancer.
Right, because that's a deal breaker.
For sure.
And what else?
Another vital area of investigation is to really understand how telomere extension interacts with all those other aging mechanisms we talked about earlier.
Like the mitochondria and the epigenetic.
Exactly. Will extending telomeres actually provide significant health benefits if those other fundamental cellular processes are still going awry?
So it's about the whole system.
Yeah, it's about looking at the whole picture.
And what's the third big question?
Well, researchers need to definitively establish whether any potential benefits of telomerase activation extend beyond simply increasing the number of times our cells can divide.
Okay.
Will it truly translate into longer and, more importantly, healthier lives for whole organisms?
Including us.
Exactly. That's the ultimate goal.
Those are all absolutely crucial questions that need solid evidence-based answers before we start seeing widespread telomerase-based anti-aging therapies.
I agree. We need to proceed with caution.
And the article's conclusion seems to take a really balanced perspective.
Yeah.
Acknowledging the exciting potential while also clearly outlining the significant risks and remaining uncertainties.
It's a realistic assessment of where the research stands right now.
So what's the main takeaway?
The article concludes that while research into telomeres and telomerase is undoubtedly a promising avenue in our ongoing quest to understand and potentially combat aging, it's still a field very much in its early stages of development.
Makes sense.
It advocates for a comprehensive and integrated approach to longevity research.
Okay.
One that explores various strategies.
Like what kind of strategies?
Things like cellular reprogramming.
Okay.
The use of senolytics.
What are those?
Those are drugs designed to target and eliminate those senescent non-dividing cells.
Interesting.
And metabolic interventions.
Okay, so a multi-pronged approach.
Exactly, rather than solely concentrating on manipulating telomeres.
Right, because it's a complex problem.
Exactly, and the expectation is that continued rigorous research will eventually provide us with a much clearer picture of the true therapeutic potential of telomere targeting strategies.
So to bring it all together for you, the listener,
Yes.
This deep dive into the world of telomeres and telomerase reveals a truly fascinating area of contemporary science.
It really is.
That holds some incredibly exciting possibilities for addressing aging at its most fundamental cellular level.
It has the potential to revolutionize how we think about aging.
These protective caps on our chromosomes and the enzyme that has the power to rebuild them are certainly central to much of the current anti-aging research.
Absolutely.
But as we've explored, it's a complex and nuanced field with significant challenges.
Right.
Particularly the critical issue of potential cancer risk.
We can't ignore that risk.
Definitely not.
It's a major factor.
There's still a great deal of ongoing scientific debate.
Yes. Lots of different perspectives and approaches.
And the complete picture is still very much coming into focus.
It's an evolving area of research, for sure.
Well, this has been a truly illuminating deep dive.
I agree. It's been a fascinating discussion.
And it really sparks some fascinating thoughts.
Like what?
Given that certain remarkably long-lived animals on our planet seem to have evolved ways to significantly extend their lifespans.
Right.
Without heavily relying on high levels of telomerase activity.
Yeah, like those bowhead whales and naked mole rats.
Exactly.
So what's the point? It really makes you wonder what other fundamental biological mechanisms, perhaps still undiscovered, might hold as yet untapped keys to significantly extending healthy human lifespan.
That's the big question, isn't it?
It really is. It's definitely a profound question to ponder.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for diving deep with us.
It's been a pleasure as always.
That's it for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
See you later.
Bye.